Prestozon. Getting ready for the holiday season. So we're just waiting for some folks to get logged in and connected, and we'll start at about 2 minutes after the hour. We know that this is a busy time of year, so thank you everyone who's taking time out of their day to join our holiday webinar. We definitely want this to be an interactive session, so if you've already got questions, feel free to pop them into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Otherwise, whenever you have a question, feel free to just send that question across and we'll make sure to answer it either when we're going through the content or towards the end when we have our Q&A before we wrap up. So we'll get started in just another minute. It looks like we've got some good international attendance today. That's always exciting. All right, so this is Sanez with Prestozon. I want to welcome everyone to our Holiday 2019 webinar. Today we're going to go through some Prestozon best practices and benchmarking data and insights to help you maximize your Holiday 2019 season. Oh, welcome. We've got someone that's brand new to Prestozon. We're really happy to have you. Thanks for chatting us. So this is going to be great. We're super excited to have you all on board today. And as I mentioned, my name's Sanez. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Prestozon. I manage our agency and large or multi-brand advertiser partnerships. And I'm joined today by an all-star team, including our CEO, Ben Aldern. Ben's CEO and co-founder, and also really the visionary behind Prestozon. So today you've got an opportunity to, I like to call it stumping the team. Like, ask a question that's so hard that either Ben or Dirk can't answer it, because I haven't seen that happen yet. So I encourage you to ask your questions. So we've got Ben, our CEO and co-founder, on the line, as well as Dirk, who's our head of partner support and ad strategy. So if you are an existing Prestozon client, you've probably interfaced with Dirk. He's probably helped you in a variety of different ways, from ad strategy to actual technical support. So he heads up that side of the team. And with that, I think we can jump in and do a little housekeeping before we get into the content. So let's go ahead and click over to our first slide. So I know there's a couple of different ways that you can communicate within Zoom. The easiest for Q&A is to just please click the Q&A. Feel free to send your questions across at any time and we'll answer them as we go through the content. We're also going to save 15 to 20 minutes-ish, hopefully at the end, for Q&A. We definitely want this to be engaging and interactive, so ask all of your burning ad optimization holiday questions. So just type them into the Q&A at any time and we'll take care of that. And if for some reason we can't get to your question, we'll follow up with you via email afterwards. And then from there, let's take a look at what we've got on our agenda for today. So kickoff and introductions, I think we've pretty much handled that. We're going to go into just quickly holiday 2019 important dates, ones that are probably already ingrained in your memory, but just a quick reminder on some of those key dates before we dig into the actual PPC holiday benchmarking insights and trends kind of around those dates. So we've done a lot of analysis and kind of looked at historically what's happened, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about what we've found and how you can plan around that. We'll dig into some special advice in terms of keywords and rules for holiday 2019. And this is Dirk's favorite new feature that we've launched, product targeting. So we're going to share some early insights from some analysis that we've done there and dig into our Prestozon Amazon ads calculator to kind of help you set expectations, figure out what your ACoS targets should be or what your CPC targets should be. There's a variety of different ways to use the calculator. And then we'll wrap up with Q&A. So with that, Ben, I'm gonna kick it off to you. The first question is, what are we looking at in terms of key dates and key stats and benchmarks?
Thanks, Inez. So obviously we've got Black Friday coming up in about a week and a half or 2 weeks, and that's going to be that really kicks off everything. Cyber Monday follows shortly after. That whole weekend is extremely critical for getting your holiday season off to the right start. Most of your optimization should probably be in place already, but there's some stuff you can do right around those dates that can help you out. And then around December 18th, it's, each product has a different last ship date based on where the product is in the warehouse and where the customer is in the world. And, but, around a week before Christmas, we start seeing performance really drop off. So that's a good one to keep in mind to make sure that you don't, keep your super high bids and budgets too far after that. And then right after Christmas, things start picking up again. And then January can be a really huge month for some people. If you're selling things like supplements or workout equipment, those pop to mind. But those can have really huge Q1s, and so you want to make sure that you're prepared for that and thinking through not just the holiday season, but also through January.
Yeah, it's what we call the New Year's resolution period. Anything workout, fitness, and resolution related, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, anything that pairs well with gifts that people bought. So if somebody gives a gift that needs batteries, you might need to buy batteries. I guess that's kind of an old example. People don't, everything comes with lithium batteries now, but you may find yourself selling a lot of complementary items right after Christmas, even on Christmas. As soon as somebody opens it up, they're going to want, that delivered in the next day or two. And that may continue throughout January.
It's probably also when you're shopping for yourself after you've returned all those gifts that you didn't really want. And now you can go and buy yourself something that you really did want.
Exactly. So we're coming up on these dates pretty quick. So what should you be prioritizing? There are some things that it's kind of, you can't do anymore, like getting inventory into the warehouse is kind of, that point is past. So let's assume that you have all your inventory in the warehouse. What ad optimization should you be doing? The main one is budget. You really want to know what your target budget is throughout the entire season and be prepared, generally with bulk upload files through the Amazon interface to change your budgets on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you're staying on top of the volume that you might get and are ready to take advantage of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then really that week before Christmas, which where there's a ton of volume available. So you want to increase right before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You may want to decrease it right after that. You'll want to keep increasing it throughout December into the lead up to Christmas. There's just, we'll see in the benchmarking plot soon, there's so much volume and scale available there, and you want to make sure that you're capturing as much of it as you can, provided your performance is staying where you want it to be. And then you want to decrease it right after the last ship date. The performance starts dropping off pretty substantially. Again, we'll see that in the next couple slides. And you don't want to be caught out with having a really high budget when your ACoS goes back up to a more normal range. And then you're going to want to increase it again right after Christmas when people get shopping again, and especially if you're finding yourself with any of those products that we just talked about, any of the New Year's resolution products or any good complementary products.
And Ben or Derek, how does this all play into Prestozon's bid automation? We always get a lot of questions around, can the automation handle the seasonality, and what's the best way to use Prestozon and bid automation in conjunction with some of these holiday optimization priorities?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oh, Derek, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, for sure. So we do get a lot of questions about that. And there's a couple things to keep in mind. One is that, you as an account manager are going to be able to be much more proactive, especially if you've been with us for a while. Then you probably have data back to last year. And so you're going to be able to look at that data last year and then make some intelligent decisions about what to do this year. But if you are doing changes, one of the strongest things about our bid automation is that we're not using a set time frame. right? And so, one of our big selling points is that we're actually using a variable time frame based on your last bid change. And so if you do raise your bid up during the holidays, we're actually just going to start the analysis for bid changes from when you raise the bid up. And so we're not going to be bringing in a lot of baggage from before you raised the bid during the non-holiday time. And so that's really nice, because then we will actually manage bid at that elevated level over the course of the holidays. And then if you do want to bring it back down afterwards, we're going to do the same thing. So if you go in and, like Ben mentioned, maybe you go in and you do a bulk upload to raise the bid, and then you do a bulk upload to bring it back down. When you bring it back down, we are again going to restart the bid automation time frame, and we're going to be managing from when you did the last bid change. And so we're basically going to go back to normal when you bring the bid changes back down. And so we are going to roll with the punches, and we are going to be able to manage your bid level at the level that you set it to. And so, that's a lot better than if we are just looking at 7 days or 14 days, then, we're bringing in pre-holiday data, we're bringing in post-holiday data, and it's a whole mix up. And so we're not doing that. And so that's one of the strong points of our bid automation.
Great. Thanks, Derek. And then Ben, love to hear you talk a little bit more about promotions and product pricing. I know everyone always talks about the volume of consumers that are shopping this time of year, and how you really have to maximize as much traffic as you can so that you can continue to monetize those folks, whether they convert or not during Q4, but hopefully into the new year. So love to hear your thoughts on kind of where you can prioritize optimizing promotions and product pricing.
So there are a lot of things that Amazon does, holiday gift guides, landing deals, deals of the day, stuff like that. If you're able to get one of those, you're definitely going to want to run your campaigns in concert with it. So if you know that, for these 2 days, you're going to have a sale and it's going to be pushed out through a bunch of other, a bunch of cool channels like a holiday guide, you're probably going to want to manage your advertising to keep that in mind. If you're reducing the sale price for an item for some period of time, you may want to decrease your bids as well, because if you keep the same CPC, your A cost may go up. Now you can keep an eye on this, and if your conversion also goes way up because your price is lower, then your A cost may stay steady. But the main thing is just to keep in mind, if you have promotions running on specific days, you're going to want to you may want to adjust your campaigns primarily to bid or budget. Also, getting those promotions in line and thinking through them is a really great thing to do early. And if you have data from last year, you may want to look at how, were people buying more than one item at a time? Did you change the pricing last holiday season? How did that work out? You may be able to get away with a slightly higher price during the holidays, just because people are converting so much more frequently, and that might get you a little bit more profit throughout the season. And then I guess I just touched on bid changes around promotions. You just want to keep that in mind as you're doing the promotions. And then special holiday campaigns. If you have a giftable item that has, somebody might search for gifts for dad, and you want to come up for that. Those are really competitive terms around this time, but they may convert really well for you, and you probably want to be targeting them.
Ben, just to piggyback on that for the special holiday campaigns, I talked to a lot of people, and some people add them as keywords within existing campaigns. That probably works for a lot of accounts. As Ben mentioned, they can be really competitive terms. And so we suggest for a lot of accounts to actually do separate campaigns so that you can manage budget separately. Just because, if you've got those keywords running in your existing campaigns, there's a chance that they're going to eat up a lot of spend. And, you're going to get hit or miss performance on it. So you can really track it and manage it a lot better if it's in a special separate campaign. And then you can also pause that campaign, once the holidays are over, so that you don't have to worry about searching for the keywords that you added and trying to pull them out.
That's a great point, Derek. It's definitely, we've got folks that I'm sure have their evergreen campaigns, and then they've got special holiday budgets, and it's super quick and easy just with the one-click campaign setup to set up your holiday campaign with your specific holiday rules. But I know you're going to dig into that later. One tip that I have for everyone that's not necessarily optimization, but just something really interesting that popped up today is, if you have multiple accounts that you're working with and any of them are not connected to Prestozon, you might want to connect them, because you might be interestingly surprised that if an account's been on Prestozon in the past, that there's additional history that you'd have access to. So we looked at an account today that had been previously connected to the platform, and we had lots of bid history for specific keywords, which is super valuable data that's unique to Prestozon that we're storing. So for any of you agency partners out there, that's always something that I recommend, so that you can have more history and more data to make decisions on. But Ben, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you to get really into the data and go through those holiday 2019, well, 2018 insights and what we're learning into 2019.
Yeah, thanks. This is what I love, looking at the past year's data to see what happened on the platform, what happens with Amazon in general, what dates should we be thinking about. We're going to start by looking at sales on each day compared to a baseline. So most of the charts here are normalized, which means that I'm not displaying actual like dollar values of sales, but we take the period October 4th to November 1st and take the average of that period, and then divide all of the numbers by that average, so that we get, relative to baseline, what are we looking at? And we can see here, for example, on Cyber Monday in North America, sales were up 300% above the baseline, or 300% of the baseline. So they went up 200%. And that's just a really useful number to know. How much should you expect? That, I mean, it ranges per profile. So you may get a lot less than that. You may get a lot more than that, but the average was plus 200%. So that's incredible. And you can see that the trend up really starts in early November, but kicks into high gear around Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And then the lead up to Christmas is just super strong. And then you get to that last ship date that's about a week before Christmas. And then it falls off a cliff, but each day is still, the day it starts decreasing, it's still plus 120% above the baseline. So there's still a ton of volume there. You just have to notice that it does decrease pretty significantly, pretty quickly. And then interestingly, in January, there's still some lift. This whole data set is looking at a lot of accounts that have data over the entire period. So this is not reflective of, say, more users joining the Prestozon platform. This is reflective of what happened with profiles who had data over the whole period. And then we see, spend going up too. The sales went up in January because the spend went up. Again, if you don't want this, then just make sure to decrease your budgets right after Christmas, so that you're not, if you increase your budgets at Black Friday and then you run that through January, you're going to be spending more in January than you were in October. And that might be good for you. That might get you a lot more sales. It just depends at what ACoS you want that to run. And if we look at the average ACoS, platform-wide, it usually ranges in like the low 20s. And then it dips really significantly on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I do want to point out some differences here between Europe and North America, where in Europe, Black Friday is much more important than Cyber Monday. And in North America, Cyber Monday is more important than Black Friday. And so we get these decreases to, a platform average of, low teens even for Black Friday in Europe. And then it kind of it goes back up a little bit, but then the 3 weeks before Christmas are really high performance. So that's where you want to be spending the money. You want to be driving these sales because the performance is really going to be there. But then, right after that last ship date, or as that last ship date approaches, it bumps back up to higher than it was in October, and then kind of settles back into, it looks like maybe a couple percent higher than it was in October. And that's why you want to keep an eye on your budgets, because you're not going to get the same performance that you got in October generally. Just another way to look at volume, clicks go up starting, the trend up is a little bit more visible starting in early November, and then the volume is really high on the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the whole weekend actually, and then drops down significantly right before Christmas. And then this one's always been interesting to me. CPC doesn't change as much as you might think it would. I always anticipated CPC changing super significantly during this period because it gets so competitive. But this is a click marketplace essentially, and so you've got so much supply of impressions. You've got so many people hitting the Amazon website that CPC doesn't need to go up that much because there's just so many impressions available. And so you may want to increase your bid slightly on Black Friday and Cyber Monday because it does get more competitive there. But you might not want to leave that high bid throughout the entire season.
Ben, I just want to jump in that, anecdotally, I've been talking to a lot of people, looking at a lot of accounts, and I don't know if this is going to hold true for this year. So far, once we got into November, I seem to be seeing CPC jumping a little bit more than it has in the past. I don't know if that's going to play out in the data once we do sort of retrospective and look at the holiday season as a whole. But I do just want to call that out that, if you are looking at managing and maybe you are seeing CPC go up, that might not be too crazy, and you might actually be seeing that. So I don't want anyone to necessarily be holding the line and refusing to go up because Ben says so, because I have been seeing that, and Amazon is an organic market, and we're pretty early in terms of CPC changing and the PPC market changing. And so, who knows, this 2019 retrospective might be a little different. Just want to call that out.
Yeah, that's a great point.
On that now. Yeah, I'm taking bets on it, and then Ben will just prove us all either wrong or right, or just show us the truth with the data in Q1. Ben, what are your thoughts on Derek's comments?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing how this season plays out. This all is a year old, so that's kind of the best data we have to go off of. And everybody realizes that Amazon advertising has gotten more competitive year over year over year. And so this year may be different. We have a lot more really large brands advertising on Amazon now with significant budgets who are a lot less cost sensitive than kind of smaller independent owned companies. So we may see CPC go up more this year. It also, I do want to point out that these are also averages, and specific niches may have really different performance. There may be some items that are extremely competitive that do have drastic CPC increases. I don't have that data in front of me right now, but as always, do experiment with your account and then figure out what works there. This is why bid automation is really helpful, because if it does need to go up, Prestozon will catch that and increase the bid, provided the performance is there.
And if we have any questions so far on the benchmarking data, feel free to hit that Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and ask away. We're happy to answer your questions. And Ben, I think one of the things that you're really excited about is getting access to some additional kind of more granular data for future benchmarking opportunities. Am I jumping the gun to bring that up now?
No, we are looking at doing a lot more fine-grained benchmarking, which should be really useful for everybody understanding what to anticipate in their specific category, for example. Stay tuned for that. That's not publicly announced, but we're hoping to release that in the next, say, months. The conversion rate is a pretty interesting plot where you can see actually here that the conversion rate goes down right up to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So even though you may see this happen and your ACoS may go up because of it, this is not a bad time to advertise. People are looking around for Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals, so they'll click on your ad and maybe keep it in their cart or write it down somewhere and then return on Black Friday and Cyber Monday and purchase it. So getting in front of shoppers in the this week and next week, it may not directly yield sales right now, but you'll be in a better place on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And then also in this lead up where conversion rate skyrockets to from just above 10% to 13% right before Christmas, and then stabilizes around 10% again. So just because you see this dip in your conversion rate doesn't, don't panic. That's normal. It'll go up, and then you'll hopefully convert some of those shoppers who saw your product in the next 2 weeks.
That's just me adding all of those products to my cart and then deciding which ones I want to purchase. And this is crazy, but believe it or not, I started thinking that Thanksgiving was literally this week because I got an email that said I just missed a pre-Black Friday sale. So every year they start building the hype earlier and earlier and earlier. I've already missed a pre-Black Friday sale. So a lot of folks are probably just preparing their carts and adding things before they decide what to purchase. That's kind of what the data is showing us, Ben.
Exactly. And again, this trend is more pronounced in North America than it is in Europe. That may be useful to take into account if you manage accounts across the whole world. And then if we look at all of these on the same plot, I know that there's a lot going on here, but I think this is a really fascinating view of it. We can see this purple line is conversion rate, and you can see it decreasing. And then this green line here is ACoS, and you can see that increasing kind of as the inverse of conversion. And then, same thing here, as conversion goes up, ACoS goes down, and then this trend is really visible here. And then this pink line is sales, and the bright green line is spend. And you can see those diverging, where spend and sales were, pretty much on track up until Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and then sales goes way up and diverges from spend, which is why this ACoS line goes down. And then everything just kind of balances out again in January, where ACoS is a little bit higher, conversion rate's a little bit lower, but the spend and sales and clicks have lifted. Again, that's probably due mainly to people not reducing their budgets after the holiday season and continuing to spend. I mean, that's great. If your performance is still there, spend away, get those sales in. Just beware that if you had a super seasonal item that may not hold, and you just want to keep on top of your budgets. And then this one, I go into depth in all these plots in our blog post. This one's a little bit overwhelming at first, but it shows the range of performance for all of the profiles that we analyzed. So instead of looking at just the average, we're looking at a box plot which shows the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentiles in this plot, or in this box here. And this red line is the baseline of the October average. And so we see that the median profile just hovers around that up until November, and then increases, and then the 25th percentile is above that baseline throughout most of December. And so this does show that most profiles get a significant lift, and some have, these wild, the 90th percentile up here is, plus 300%, plus 400%. There are some that are, plus 500% or more. And even the 75th percentiles are up there. And then, they come back down, and, most profiles still are lifted in January.
And Ben, how do you define a profile? Is that just yeah?
Yeah, that's a good question. A profile is one marketplace for an account. So these are all individually or they're separated out, and then they're aggregated together to get a plot like this. So all of this is anonymized and aggregated information, and it's important to split it out by profile when doing the data collection, because France performs differently than Germany, performs differently than the US. And so, and then they're obviously all in different currencies. And so we have to do some math there first before we get plots like this.
And in case anyone wasn't sure yet, Ben is a data scientist. It's a true story.
It is.
This is how he can talk data and look at images like this and take so much meaning from it, which is amazing. So if you guys aren't data scientists and you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A.
All right, so that was all the benchmarking that we have. Let's go into product targeting insights a little bit. Product targeting came out earlier this year, and probably one of the most exciting things that Amazon's released in the last couple of years as far as new ad products. We looked at a bunch of product targets to see what performed in general. And we hear a lot of stories of people either getting really great performance or really terrible performance out of product targeting. And some are hard to scale, some scale really well. And we wanted to figure out what was driving all of that. The first thing that stood out is that the average order value really does impact ACoS. So if you have higher average order value, meaning either your sale price is high or people buy many items at once, then those tend to have pretty good ACoS for product targets. We do see a lot of good ACoS for low volume product targets as well. So even if you're only getting a couple clicks a day, you may still get good ACoS out of that. It's hard to scale those sometimes because they're kind of long tail, and the volume may not be there, but they're still worth running because they do convert well.
That's interesting. So that's a great way if you have really niche products that you can target very specifically to acquire potentially new customers that hopefully you can upsell or continue to sell to throughout the coming year.
Exactly. And a good way to get a hold of those is by running category product targets and reducing the bid. So this is kind of similar to a strategy that I recommend for auto campaigns, where you can start an auto campaign with a whole set of products and set the bid to 5 cents or 10 cents. And you're not going to get volume there. But if you do get a click and you do get a conversion, then it's going to be at a very low ACoS. And so those are useful to just have running in the background, kind of cleaning up whatever leftover impressions Amazon's willing to sell you. And, same thing with product targeting. You can just run these category targets at a really low bid, and, you're not going to get a lot of volume, but you might get a little bit of volume, and they'll be cost effective.
I do also want to call out that, this does seem to suggest that because spend doesn't matter too much, it's possible for you to sort of dip your toe in the water on product targeting and see whether or not a certain account will scale. We're all advertisers here, and there's some advertising where, you really have to jump in and put a lot of money towards something in order to see if it's going to work. And it doesn't look at this point like PT is like that. And you might be able to just throw a little bit of money in, test the water, and then scale from there.
So
It's a great
Derek,
point.
are you telling me this is the time to launch a hyper-targeted brand new product on Amazon and use product targeting?
And
It's
throw
just
all
my
your money
pipe
into
dream.
it.
Huh?
I mean, it's always tough to decide when to launch something. The holidays are obviously going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into everything, and just like everything else, we'll do a retrospective on the 2019 holiday season and see what happened. But if you're launching something, or if you're driving a lot of new spend through your account anyway, it probably doesn't hurt to throw a little bit of money towards product targeting, because like I said, or like Ben said, the volume doesn't matter much, and that also goes to the fact that Ben, I don't know if you mentioned that even though we're seeing like, oh, it's either working or it's not working, in general it seems to track with the account, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So if you have, an account running at 30% ACoS for keyword targets, you're probably going to be around the same for product targets. There are some extreme accounts that have, far worse performance or far better performance for product targeting, but in general, it's around the same ACoS.
Great.
So basket building is a really interesting one, and we've seen accounts where they'll run product targeting for products other than the one that's being advertised that are in their same brand, and so people are excited about the product that they're looking at and they're purchasing, and then they'll come across other ones that are good complements or exciting other products that you offer and add those to their basket, and those can be extremely high performance, especially if you have brand recognition and people like your brand. You can get potentially a couple more orders placed at the same time, and those drive great sales. So try doing that. Start a campaign with ASIN 1 and then targeting ASINs 2, 3, and 4, and see what you can do with that. The other thing to keep in mind is substitutes and complements. So when Amazon launched product targeting, they also launched enhanced auto campaigns, which come with 4 different targets per campaign. And you can substitutes and complements target product detail pages, and they perform very differently, because substitutes, you're going straight against your competitors. Complements, you're going with something that somebody is shopping for that they might also want your product. And you probably want to separate these out. You probably want a substitute product targeting campaign and a complement product targeting campaign, because one's going to run at 50% ACoS and one's going to run at 10% ACoS, and you want to be able to manage your budget differently there.
And if you're worried about finding out which ASIN is a substitute and which ASIN is a complement, Amazon is already doing that for you. And so if you go into Prestozon and you go into the Keyword Explorer, you can actually see the 4 different targets that Ben was talking about from the auto campaign. They'll show up as green auto targets, and you can actually expand the search term breakdown right there in the Keyword Explorer, and you'll be able to see all of the ASINs that are shown under the substitute target and all of the ASINs that are shown under the complement target. And so you can go through that and pull out any converted ASIN from substitutes and put it into a specific substitute PT campaign, and you could do the same thing with complements. And so a lot of that work is already done for you on the Amazon and on the Prestozon side.
Yeah, and one strategy here could be to start 2 campaigns and 2 auto campaigns and pause all of the other target types so that you just have substitute running in one and complement running in the other. And then you can also manage bid and budget on those auto campaigns independently, instead of having one target in the auto campaign that's performing really well and one that's not. And then that also helps you separate out where to move these targets into a specific product targeting campaign. And we are working on a feature that will extend the keyword rules functionality to product targeting so that you could automatically promote these ASIN targets from an auto campaign into a product targeting campaign. Very excited about that one. I touched on this earlier, special keywords and rules. Starting a campaign called like holiday research and then throwing in a broad keyword like gifts or gifts for men. You can see this is just, I just did this right before the webinar. If you search on gifts, the autocomplete shows a whole bunch of, what people are searching for. And you can throw all of these into a research campaign and see what search terms convert, and then set up a rule on Prestozon to automatically move those search terms from the research campaign over to a performance campaign, and then negate them in the research campaign so that you can manage them really precisely in the performance campaign. The cool thing about doing it this way is that a lot of the work is handled for you, and then you have them in their own campaign so you can manage budget independently. And then once the holiday's over, you can just pause them, and then you'll have them ready for next year. So you just unpause them in December next year, and you have a pretty good starting point. You may want to adjust your bids if like the average CPC of your niche went up or something like that. But they're already prepped for next year. And if you have ones that you ran last year that you just paused, you can, it's a great starting place. You can just unpause them and let them run. And I'd like to touch on a calculator that we just put out. This is really valuable, not just for the holiday season, but for just for general usage. Let me change my screen share so that I can jump into this Excel file.
That's something I always wished I had when I was on the agency side, because when you're talking to brands and advertisers, sometimes they know their metrics, but their metrics are unrealistic, and sometimes they need a little guidance on figuring out their metrics. So this is great. I know you've built this great little tool that people can download. Go ahead and walk us through what the different calculators are doing, Ben.
So this is all essentially one equation moved around to get different outputs. So if you're looking at what a good target ACoS is, you can put in your estimated CPC, conversion rate, and average order value and get a good target there. So if we're looking at a niche that we guess is going to have around a 75-cent CPC, and our organic conversion rate is 15%, we take a couple percent off just to be safe. And then our product is priced at $30, and we'll just say the average order value is $30. That leads to a 19% ACoS. And so we can look at, well, what happens if we just have a 10% ACoS or a 10% conversion rate? That'll lead to a 25% ACoS. And so you can kind of get a range of what's reasonable. If you underestimate the CPC and this is maybe at $1, that'll increase your ACoS to 33%. And then you can do the inverse. Say you have a target ACoS of 30% and an average order value of $30, and you guess that the CPC is going to be 75 cents, you're going to need an 8% conversion rate to hit this target ACoS. I'll touch briefly on the advanced version, which gives you some ranges. I really like this one because, let's say we are guessing that it's going to be between 65 and 85 cent CPC, and the conversion rate is going to be between 7 and 9%. And the average order value is between $30 and $33. Your best case is going to be 22%, and your worst is going to be 40%, and then the mean case is 30%. And so if this is useful if you're an agency and you get a new client and they're in some super competitive space like supplements, and we've got like a $5 to $7 CPC, and they're brand new, so we're going to estimate that the conversion rate is going to be like 5 to 7%, and then the average order value is like $60 to $66. We're going to be looking at between 108% and a 233% ACoS. So if they come to you and say, look, we really want a 30% ACoS, you can show them these numbers and say, where it doesn't seem to be realistic. As far as using this for the holiday season, if you go back, let's just take a look at the basic one and say your ACOS was $1, and so we expect it to be like 120 for Black Friday, and then the conversion rate is going to go up from 10% to 13%, and that'll give you an ACOS of 31%. That might be useful for setting your ACOS targets in Prestozon, just to make sure that you're tracking to what's realistic.
This is also a really powerful tool, not just for expectation setting, but also planning in terms of ASINs, whether or not you're, an account owner or an agency, especially if you're like a full Amazon agency partner, deciding where the low-hanging fruit are and saying, hey, you know what, if I cut my conversion, if I bring my conversion rate up to 18% from 13%, I think that's really realistic. If we do that, we can cut ACOS by 21% versus, maybe the CPC is the place where there's meat on the bone. It's a really great way to see, where are the places that I can tweak in order to really drive efficiency.
And if you need any help with the calculator, feel free to ask any questions or drop a line to support. Ben, I don't know if there was more you were going to add in terms of the calculator, but we do have a request in the Q&A, and I know we want to open up for Q&A shortly.
Let's go.
Okay.
Go for it.
So our first question is, can you show us how to set up that research campaign for gift keywords with Prestozon automation to gather the converting keywords into a new campaign? So I think we're going to be jumping into rules to demonstrate that.
Yeah, let me pull up an account that we can do that in.
So bear with us. We're just going to log into Prestozon and basically pull up the campaign manager.
Yeah, so let's see here.
And we also have some great videos on YouTube about creating rules, but for me, it always seems more complicated when you start doing it. So if you ever need any help with rules or you want the team to just double check what you've created, just drop us a note.
So this is a test account that we run. It's a real account on Amazon, but we use this for testing our software to make sure that all the features work well. And I'm just gonna take one of these. There are two ways to go about it. You can either start it with one-click setup, or you can start the campaigns in Amazon and then set up the rules on Prestozon. One thing that's going to be challenging here is that the auto campaign is going to just search for everything. So you probably don't want an auto campaign here. You just want the research and performance. And so if we look at this, let's imagine that this was called something like holiday performance for product group 1. And this is holiday research for product group 1. We'll just click on this I right here. I'm going to actually copy this campaign name, and we're going to start a rule, add rule. There are two kinds of rules you can add, positive and negative. We're going to add a promotion rule and paste this here. So let's call this promotion. We're going to add ad groups here. Let's see here.
Ben, you have an SP. Oh yeah, I figured it out.
This is what I get for, oh yeah, take out that SP. You're right. Okay, for doing it.
No one ever types as perfectly when someone's watching, let alone when you have a whole audience watching.
Live demos, they're the best. Okay, great. So now we have these, the performance and research. And so the research is what you're going to put in these seed keywords for gifts for mom, gifts for dad, gifts for daughter. You're going to start a broad keyword in the research, an exact keyword in the performance, and a negative exact in the research. What this will do is look for search terms that have made a sale in either one. You can check this box or not. We don't really need to search in the performance campaign. We just want to search in the research one. So any search term that makes a sale in the research group is going to have these 3 keywords started up. this broad and negative exact combo allows you to still explore the long tail without targeting the exact match of that search term. And we put all of that search term traffic over to the performance campaign by having this exact match here. And so we just hit create rule, and then you can either turn automation on or not. I think it's probably a good idea to do this. So you can turn that on, and then as soon as one of those search terms gets a sale, it will be moved over to the performance campaign. Just save those changes, and you're all done.
And if people are familiar with our one-click setup, this follows a very similar pattern to the special campaign setup. So if you do happen to be launching new campaigns through the one-click campaign setup, you can go to the special tab and you'll see that it's a similar rule structure, and it would create those campaigns for you.
So
Exactly.
Adam, hopefully we answered your question about the gift keywords and how to use the automation to move those converting keywords. But if you have another question, let us know, or if there are any other questions from the audience. Oh, that's great. Excited to hear that. Thanks, Adam. If you need any help exploring the rules, just definitely reach out. Derek's happy to help and take a look at the rules once you've set them up to make sure it's exactly what you wanted to accomplish. Ben, go ahead. I'm sorry. Were you going to just highlight how to do that in the one-click campaign setup as well?
I just wanted to bring it up as Derek was talking. I think that it is very similar to the structure here for the branded research and branded performance. I wouldn't recommend using this for something that specific. I generally, start those up as a totally separate brand new things. I wouldn't, restructure or go through one-click setup generally for that. But it is the same thing. So if you had holiday research and a holiday performance, and then the brand names would be gifts, Christmas, things like that. We're going to start those broad keywords here, and then we've got this rule that does just what I set up previously. So you've got holiday performance getting the exact match and holiday research getting the broad and negative exact.
Great. All right, let's see if we have any other questions from the audience. I think we've covered a lot of really exciting content today beyond just the holidays. We got into Derek's favorite, product targeting. Okay, we've got another question. Let's see. What would cause the sales to fall off for competitor targeting ads? I was running at about $2,000 a month in sales off of competitors, and then in August it fell below $500 a month.
So this is a great question, and this is where both Prestozon analytics and some market research can help. So the first thing you'd want to check is if CPC changed, because if your CPC changed, that may indicate that the market got more competitive and you didn't keep up, or maybe your ACoS target was really low, and I see a follow up there. But if your ACoS target was set really low, then Prestozon automation will try to hit that ACoS target, and there might not be as much volume at that CPC. That's something you want to be careful about. You also want to check if another competitor entered the ring and is advertising against you, and maybe they have a better title or a better price. Definitely product targeting ads are really subjected to star rating and price competitiveness. I see a follow-up. I noticed that my main competitor, I wasn't getting any impressions any longer.
So almost as if the listing was closed, but it wasn't. Does that sound like a buy box thing to you, Ben? Or what could cause that to happen in terms of successfully getting volume from a competitor and then it dropping off?
Yeah, I would, check your CPC and check your bid, make sure that you're still competitive. An easy way to test this is just to like double or triple your bid on one of your keywords or that ASIN, and then see if that impacts impressions. If you can, double your bid and then over the next week you get a lot more impressions, then it's a bid problem. If it doesn't increase impressions at all, then I think you might need to look at your conversion rate and see what's going on there. Amazon always does take bid and relevance into account. So if you're not converting very well against a specific ASIN, they'll probably deprioritize your ad. There's a lot to check on, but I guess I'd start with probably bid and seeing if there are any new competitors advertising against that same ASIN.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot, where all of a sudden impressions will drop off because there's a huge new competitor making a play in the marketplace. So EJ, hopefully we've answered your question. We've got another question. So based on Ben's earlier data, during the Black Friday to Christmas timeframe, we will see a potential average increase in CPC and spend of maybe 15 to 25%. Should I do a blanket increase of my bids and budgets of about 25% on Thanksgiving to stay ahead of the competition?
Let's bring up that chart again. Short answer, I guess there's no short answer. Maybe. It's, yeah, so like right here, this is a, plus 25% increase just for that weekend. Do note that it went back down, and also note that this is for Europe. We don't see that quite as drastically in North America. So you may have, a 10 to 15% increase here, but it's not this, 25% bump. And then it does go up here, from, 80% of baseline up to maybe 110% of baseline. But it's again, not this drastic change that we saw in Europe. I think that this probably varies really drastically per category. And so some categories may have, a 50% bump that lasts throughout the entire season, and some may actually go down. So you want to really keep an eye on, what is your CPC doing right now? Especially in Europe, we saw this CPC increase early on in November. So you probably have some indication if your CPC is going to go up. I would imagine that, if your CPC is going to be high throughout the holiday season, that it's already gone up a little bit. And if that's the case, use the ACoS calculator, see what kind of CPC you can handle based on where you think your conversion rate is going to be. And then, increasing your bid for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, seeing what happens, and then either decreasing it again or letting Prestozon manage the bid from that higher level, given your ACoS targets. That's a good way to go about it.
Great. So
I do want to make one additional just mathematical point on that. So in addition to the CPC, do note that the volume goes up as well. So just from the math of your question, if you were going to bring the bid up, you would actually want to bring the budget up a higher percentage than the bid, just because, if you were to increase the bid 25%, you're also going to be seeing higher volume. So your budget ideally would go up even more than just that 25%. So just a quick mathematical thing to think about in terms of when you're making that decision.
That's a great point. And if we look at this, if we're increasing CPC by 25% and we're increasing clicks by 100%, you have to multiply those together. So it's 1.25 times 2. So you're getting a 2.5 times increase in budget. So if you're going to do that, multiply your budget by 2 to 3 times at least. If you don't want to be budget limited, or if you want to like kind of keep pace with the market, obviously you can keep your budget the same. You're just going to run out of money, or you're going to run out of budget sooner.
Great. So Marcus, I see your question about, is there a webinar to get to know Prestozon in general? It's like you're reading my mind. As we wrap up, I was going to mention that our next kind of new user onboarding webinar is December 3rd. So We'll send that out as a follow-up as well. For any of you that are advertisers or brands that are looking for some additional support with your Amazon advertising, feel free to reach out to me directly if you'd like to be connected to one of our agency partners. To follow up, we'll send a copy of the webinar recording as well as some of the resources that we covered. And I think, do we have, oh, I don't know if we have time to answer this one because I'm not sure there's ever a short answer about our stance on dynamic bidding. But I could give
there
you the
isn't a
answer
short
of,
answer.
I have the short
one,
answer. I can't do the long answer. The short answer is there's a blog post that goes into depth about our philosophy on that. But Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer really is just experiment on your own products because it does vary pretty drastically from product to product. It can be useful, but you have to be careful because you are giving Amazon a lot more control over your bid. If they do a good job with it, it can really knock things out of the park and be a really easy solution to getting more sales. But you just have to experiment with it on your own. We're looking to do some studies on this, and then we'll publish the results as soon as we have them.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules with the holiday season. And if there are additional questions, you can reach us at support@Prestozon or just hit the little help tab in the application. And we will follow up with you from here. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.